All right, welcome to the Entrepreneurial Odyssey. Today I'm with Logan Decamp. I am Rob Ratliff. The Entrepreneurial Odyssey is a podcast about the entrepreneurial spirit and what it's like to be in business for yourself. And today we have Logan who's going to be talking about his journey as an entrepreneur. And I can't wait to hear more about it. Logan, just tell us a little bit about what you do right now.
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much, Rob, for this opportunity to come on here with you today. I did want to say, for those that are watching, listening in, I do have a stutter. If you hear me mumble, maybe take a longer pause than normal, I promise there's nothing wrong with the podcast. It's just me and like how I talk. But my journey and how I've gotten to where I am today is a long one, so I'll try and condense it down as much as I can because I could probably talk for 20 minutes about it. But basically, where I come from and my whole background, growing up, my mom, she had me when I was 19. Or excuse me, my mom had me when she was 19. My dad at the time was in and out of prison a lot. He was drinking, doing a lot of stuff with that. So growing up, I didn't really have a lot of parental guidance, and I was growing up around my I was growing up around my grandma, and I didn't really have nobody really to look up to. And as a result, around the age of 13, I started to hang around people that were 16, 17, 18 years old. They would sell weed, smoke pot, drink alcohol, and I started doing that at the age of 13. And I was flunking out of school, didn't really have a direction with my life. And around the age of 15, 16, my mom approached me and she told me that she's dating this guy in a town that's in it was about 60 minutes away west of where I was. And I'm not sure what made me say yes at the time, but I said yes, that I'll move to that town with you. At 15 years old, I was going into junior year of high school. So it was a big change. It was a very big in environmental shift for me to go from living in this town where I know like my friend circle, I have this sort of a comfort zone, to completely shift my environment to something new at that age was super hard at the time. But to reflect back on my journey, that was probably the biggest point in my journey that got me to where I am today, because that environmental shift, it took me out of that situation of smoking and drinking. Of course, some of those habits still followed with me for some years, but then I got into golf, and that's when I developed like a new friend circle. But that's also, Rob, like a point in my life where I started to have a lot of anxiety about social settings, and that's when my speech impediment got worse again. And I fell in love with golf because like I didn't really have to talk to nobody, and like I didn't really have to be put in those social situations. So I actually had a career in golf course management. I went to school for it and all that, because at the time I was like, this is for me, because I don't want to do podcasts and get on camera and do stuff like this. Like that scares the crap out of me. And to make a long story short, I was very successful in that. I wound up in Riviera Country Club in Los Angeles, California, and I got to work like very high caliber golf courses for about 4 to 5 years. But in 2020, I was living in Los Angeles, which was a childhood dream of mine since I was 10 years old, to live in California. I was doing that, but I just remembered being so depressed and unfulfilled with my life. And I'm like, what is wrong with me? I've spent all these hours and dollars to work to this point in my life, but I'm just so unhappy with my life, and I'm so unfulfilled. And then the world shut down in 2020. It allowed me to take a step back from work. I started to realize I have more of a purpose and a vision with fitness. I seen how it changed my mom's life. My dad unfortunately passed from cancer and a lot of other health problems. So I made a leap into fitness. I moved to Utah, and since 2020, I've been a functional nutrition and fitness coach.
Okay, man, that is quite the journey.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing what makes an entrepreneur. I picked up on a couple of things there, and one is just when you just come to the conclusion that you're just really not happy, especially if you're working for someone else. And that's how I was before I put my 2 weeks in. I just felt, what am I doing in this cubicle? And I told my parents that I was going to be quitting and going full time on my own business, and I told them that I'm just sick of the cubicle. And of course, my mom's reaction is, couldn't they just get you a bigger cubicle? And you understand, it's not the size of the cubicle, it's the fact there's a cubicle at all. And I have to report from 9 to 5 to help some other company make more money. And it's just my passion is in marketing. And I love to go out there and help businesses grow. And I'm just very good at driving traffic and getting new clients for people. So I was doing that for these other companies, but I really wanted to just do it for my own agency. So I got a partner, and she grew the company to a point with my help that I could just walk away. And so it's interesting how just you can have a great job, great location, great people you work with, and still feel unfulfilled. And I feel like there's a lot of entrepreneurs that are like that. It's funny, you talk about getting in the crowd with the drinkers and the smokers and the weed people, and people smoke weed and stuff. And that really reminds me of my childhood. I never actually did any kind of drugs or even had a drink probably till I was in my, 16, 17. I think it was about 17 or 18. No, I may have been 19 before I had my first taste of alcohol. I lived in New Zealand at the time. We were at some party. I'm like, hey, I'll try this. But I remember, and this is going back sharing my story a little bit, so forgive me for just talking about this, but I want to make a point here too. What's interesting is I was not doing very well in school. Like, I just hated going to classes. I hated the bells. I hated the teachers telling me what I had to do, when I had to do it, what assignments I had to do. And I decided I was just going to drop out of school, and I was going to go to the Air Force, right? So my dad was like, okay, great, let's go talk to a recruiter. So go to the Air Force. I'm 16 years old, ninth grade kind of thing. And the recruiter says, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to be a pilot. And he just kind of laughed. He's like, I can't put you in a multi-billion-dollar plane if you can't even finish high school. So like, it's not going to happen. You could be a janitor maybe or something. And I think the whole thing was, I don't even know if it was planned, but it definitely made a point that, okay, I can see what you're doing there. And so I ended up going into a school where I had complete autonomy to work as fast as I wanted to. It was a home study course. And because I was able to work at my own rate and learn as fast as I can and do my assignments as quickly as I can, I was essentially able to get all of my classes done 3 years worth of school in about 6 months, because it just cut out the red tape of the societal norms of the going to class and getting an assignment and doing an assignment and coming back. It just, how many entrepreneurs are like that, where it's just there's got to be a better way. I just don't fit this mold. I don't fit this report here, report there, do this step by step. So I don't know if you felt like that at your job. It's a great job, but it's just not you. What do you think? Why do you think it was that you weren't happy, even though it was that awesome job?
Rob, it's funny you asked that because a year ago, I probably would have told you a different story of why it was like that. But the past 8 months of this year has been a lot of mental growth for me. And something that I heard on a podcast that really got me thinking for a week, it was on Ed Milet's podcast, and he had a guest on, and he was talking about the story of victim to victor. And a lot of people, they have these past experiences in life that can subconsciously create baggage that carries with them through life, and it molds them into the person they are today. For me, I started to think about that more. And I think for me, the reason why I was at such a great job back in 2020, but was so unhappy and unfulfilled with my life, is because going back to high school and college, I've been made fun of many times for my speech impediment and my stutter. And golf course management, I sometimes had to talk to people, but it was nothing like having to run a business and stuff like that. For me, the reason why I think I've found so much unfulfillment and not being happy is because I played a victim to my past experiences of being made fun of for my stutter, to where the only way to really find purpose and happy in my life is to be a victor, overcome those past experiences, realize that it doesn't define who I am, and that's the only way to really move forward from that.
That's great. Do you remember, did you hear Ed Milet's story about his son and the golfing tournament that he was in and stuff as a kid?
Potentially.
Yeah. If you don't remember it, you should just go on YouTube and just look up Ed Milet and his talking about his son. And I think it was maybe one of the first tournaments he was in as a childhood golfer. Not Ed, but his son. It's really funny. I think you'll enjoy it. If you haven't heard it, or if you have, even go back and watch it again. It's really funny. It's good story, good moral. All right, so you've come a long way, obviously, from, like you said, victim to victor. What do you think has been the greatest reward in doing that?
Ooh, that's a good thing. That's a good thing you asked. I've not been asked that before. I think the best thing that has really come out of that is having more purpose and fulfillment in my life. Because reflecting back on golf course management and back where I was in 2020, like back then I was the worst person to be around, Rob. I would go to the golf course and I would basically be like a grumpy old man.
Yeah.
Like people hated to be around me because I was always complaining. I was just always frustrated. I was not happy. So I think really the biggest thing that has really been a great reward from being able to overcome those past experiences is being a better person to be around for the people that need me most, and being able to find purpose. And every single day I wake up and I love what I do. Now, of course, do I love some of the challenges that come from running a business? No, of course not. But I love being able to actually help people and really having a purpose for what I do in my business.
Yeah, I tell you what, there's so many times I talk to these entrepreneurs and I seem to see that's a theme that follows, is that purpose and that passion. So many people are in business because they feel like they're called to what it is that they're doing. I could totally understand where you are now doing what you do because you feel like it's the purpose for which you were designed to do, and you have goals and you have visions and dream a future and what that future is going to look like. And I think you share that with other entrepreneurs just from the people I've talked. Stubborn. You never gave up. You didn't allow those other kids to tell you what you could or couldn't do. They made fun of you, but you didn't let it overtake you in the long run. And that's another thing that I found with entrepreneurs, is they're just stubborn and no one's going to tell them what they can and can't do. So you definitely fit in that mold too. What's your opinion of what it means to be an entrepreneur in your words, in your mind? What does it mean to be an entrepreneur?
Great. That's going to be a great thing to ask, Robin. Thank you for the nice words as well, too. So just to repeat your question, you're asking, what do you think it takes to become a entrepreneur?
Become an entrepreneur, and what do you think the traits are in your mind that make you a good entrepreneur?
The biggest thing that I can recommend for people, so there might be people that are watching this and listening in that are way further ahead of me in business, but I still think this runs true from the moment you start a business to the point that like you are like a CEO and have employees underneath you. The biggest thing that I had to overcome was, for years, I used to think if I just work longer hours, then I will have a successful business, which is a hard reality that is not true when it comes to running a business, because it's got to be more task focused rather than working long hours focused. So I think one of the biggest traits is being task focused and making sure you're deploying everything on task rather than just working longer hours in your business. Because that's been a hard lesson for me recently that I've had to overcome if I reflect back on my journey, for sure.
I think that's really cool. I remember going to a conference for Funnel Hacking Live, and I go there every year. It's really super awesome. It's in Orlando this next year. But I was there last year as well. And I remember talking to, I think it was last year or the year before, but I was talking to someone who owns this business and has this huge following and things like that. And it seems like the entrepreneur mind is always thinking towards the future, the big picture, laying out the ideas and the vision. But when it comes to the tasks, a lot of entrepreneurs really struggle with the getting the stuff actually done part of the management. And my advice to people is, for those who are listening, is if you find that you're one of those people who's great with the ideas and the concepts and you know where you're headed, but you're just having trouble fulfilling or you don't see the details, you have to find that other person that you can partner up with who that's what they're good at. They're good at the details, the execution. And luckily, my partner is both. She's really good at both ideas and the vision, but also really good at managing me and making sure that the tasks that I need to get done are getting done. So I absolutely agree. You've got to be focused on the tasks and getting the things done, because the ideas themselves are not going to make you wealthy and they are not going to help your business. You have to get things done and done quickly, and you've got to move on those things. And my dad told me a long time ago, if you ever get an opportunity, you just have to jump on it. Has there been a time in your life where you just jumped on an opportunity where you weren't necessarily ready for it, but you just did it anyway, leap of faith, hoping that it was going to work out?
Yes, a few times. The first one was pretty crazy that I still can't believe I did, still to this day, was in 2020 when I made the leap from golf course management to being a personal trainer at the big box gym. I cut my salary in half with one decision overnight.
Yep.
Which was pretty surreal in that moment. Being able to go, just cutting your salary in half overnight is pretty scary. So that was definitely one. It was like, I don't know what's gonna happen, but I know I need to do this. And I didn't come up with this, but Tony Robbins said this: change will only happen when the pain of staying the same exceeds the pain of change. And that was me in 2020. Like, I just needed to make a change, so I went full leap into it. Didn't really think about it, and it turned out to be a great decision for sure. And I think another one too is a lot of people, in my opinion, I think we often hesitate on mentorship, putting yourself in a position to potentially go into debt, to go into mentorship and things like that, to move yourself further along in life. I believe like mentorships and a community and all that stuff is super important. So there's definitely been times in my life where I've had to take out like a small loan to go into a mentorship and things like that. But it turned out to be a great decision because I've been able to meet a lot of other friends in that mentorship and a lot of the people I can network with and just continue to grow more as a person.
Yeah. So talk a little bit more about that. How important is it to either go to conferences, get mentorship, training from other people, and why do you think it's so important?
The reason why I believe it's so important is a couple of reasons. One, so basically when you're running a business in the beginning, so like for me, for example, I'm like a man of many hats. I'm HR, I'm marketing, sales, you name it, I'm there, right? And oftentimes, and I could be wrong on this, but from my experience, we get lost and we're just driven and we're just not really networking with other people. So I think being able to go into like a conference and being able to network with other people that are doing the same thing really helps inspire and motivate you to keep on going. I went to a conference back in April where there was like 1,000 people there, and there was really successful entrepreneurs making hundreds of millions of dollars. And I remember for a month straight, I was super motivated and inspired to do like everything possible, but also going to those conferences more specifically has given me the opportunity to where now I have a friend, we have a call like once a week. He's way further ahead in business than I am, and we just talk once a week, and he's basically like a coach for me. And the only way that I've been able to do that is because I met him back at a conference that I went to a few months ago. And then the other reason, Rob, that I think mentorship is so important is because running a business, as people might know already, there's certain skill sets that you have to work on to become a successful business owner. and you're not going to be able to acquire those skills. Like something that I talk a lot about with our clients, and I've said on like lots of trainings before and stuff, is more knowledge is not power. Your ability to apply the information is power. And when you're running a business, you're trying to put more of a leverage on your time, because if you can get stuff done in less time, then you can get more done from that, right? Having mentorship, they already dumb it down enough to where they can give you the task and the resources to apply the information much faster, so you can get further ahead in your business and in life as well too.
Yeah, I think it was also Tony Robbins who said something like knowledge isn't power, acting on that knowledge is power, or there's something along those lines. So yeah, I totally agree. You can have a clear vision, you can know where you're headed, but if you're not willing to put in the effort and the work, then it's just not going to happen. I think it was Earl Nightingale who, on the kind of the inverse or converse of that, said that you've also got to have a vision of your future. You have to know where you're going, and you have to understand where you're headed, because if you don't have that vision, you don't have those goals, it's like a ship leaving the harbor without a rudder. The idea of a ship leaving the harbor with no rudder and no way to steer, not knowing where it's headed, and heading and ending up at the destination that it's supposed to be in, is just, it's not going to happen. So you've got to have those goals. You've got to have those action steps. What action steps have you put in front of yourself to try to grow your business, get more clientele?
Yeah, I'm actually glad you asked that. I have a mentor. His name is Nick Ross. He has a podcast as well too, and I talk with him frequently. Something that he's talked about on his framework and his mentorship that I'm applied to my life, and I teach our clients as well too, is essentially like a lot of people, they have a lot of different goals from their life. I want to buy a boat. I want to buy a house. I want this. I want that. And as a result, they often lose focus on what's really important to them. So something that I teach to clients and like I do myself is I create a page of all the different goals that I have. It could be 15 to 30 different goals, right? And then at the end of that, you have to really look down and narrow it down to 5 specific goals that are really important to you. And then once you identify those 5, what are 5 things you have to do every single day without fail to accomplish those goals? And then that then becomes your daily task for the day. And if you do all 5 of those things, you circle a W on the day. And if you don't, you put an L. And nobody wants to identify as a loser. So it's a way to keep yourself accountable, because if you start stacking a lot of wins in your favor, your confidence is going to increase and you're going to feel a lot better about yourself, and you're probably going to notice a lot of wins along the way as well too.
That's great advice. Tell me a little bit about your fitness coaching. What kind of coaching do you do? What are your clients like? What are you looking for in an ideal client? Tell me about that a little bit.
Yeah, so our ideal people that we work with, especially here, so we offer kind of 2 different models. We have in-person and online. Our in-person model here in Utah, we work mainly with a lot of software engineers. A lot of people that work at a desk job, they have a lot of chronic pain, like on their wrists, their forearms, their back, their shoulders, just from sitting down a lot. So we really help people not only lose weight, but move better free. In my nearly 2,000 hours of personal training experience, the biggest problem I see is people just don't move with the purpose. So we teach people how to move with the purpose so they can avoid a lot of chronic pain in their life. And then online, we really work with people in their 30s, the 50s. They're overweight, lacking confidence. They've tried some diets. They're not really sure where to turn next. So we teach. So something that people don't quite understand is it's more than weight loss. It's shifting your identity into the person you need to become to support the goals, the needs, and the wants that you want in life. Because the biggest problem in America right now, Rob, is not weight loss. We all can starve ourselves and lose weight. But the problem is we don't know how to keep it off. So we need to understand how can we lose this weight and keep it off.
So it's a lifestyle change. It's a mental change. It's not just show up and work out for an hour.
Correct.
Obviously, that's better than nothing, but it's not necessarily going to change your life. I remember someone was interviewing Arnold Schwarzenegger and asked him, like, what motivates you to get to the gym every day? And he had this look on his face like, I don't know, why do you brush your teeth every day? It's just something I do. He doesn't need to be motivated to go. It's just part of his life. I mean, it's as weird to not go to the gym as not eating or not taking a shower. So I can understand what you're saying there about you just have to make it part of your lifestyle. I know for me as an entrepreneur, and I was talking about this yesterday when someone was interviewing me for their podcast, they were asking me, and I'll ask you the same thing, but how do you balance like work life? And I said, one of the things I do is I have cutoff time. I go to the gym every day for an hour and a half. And it doesn't matter what I'm doing. If unless I have a meeting or something I have to be on like this, then fine. But it gets to a point where I look at my watch and it's okay, it's 1:30, 2 o'clock. I'm going to stop what I'm doing. I'm going to get up and I'm going to get my butt down to the gym and I'm going to work out for a while. And so that's one of the things that's just important to me is I just make sure that it's just part of my life because physical exercise is so important to me, but I think also it should be important to anyone who's an entrepreneur and in business for themselves because that fitness level and exercise is going to give you more energy, give you time to think, reflect. Even if you just work out and then just sit in a sauna or steam room for 20 minutes, 15 minutes, and just let your mind be free for a minute. Just think about the things that you're working on and what you can do to improve and let all of the things that are happening in your life melt away for a minute and just clear away so you can focus on yourself to take some time to think. The other thing I do is I make sure that by 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, I'm just done. I just cut it off and I say, I don't care if there's stuff left to do, unless it's some kind of emergency, somebody's website's down or something, I'll stay up. Otherwise, it's time to spend time with my wife, my kids, whatever, but I do have a cutoff time where I don't go any later than 8:30, 9 o'clock, and then I don't care what I'm in the middle of, I will just stop and I will be done. So talk to me a little bit about what are some of the things you do to balance your work life and your social life and family life, things like that.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked, Rob. So the first thing I recommend, back in April, I went to a conference and there was this lady named Hannah Heaton and she had a talk and she was talking about balance and this whole work-life balance thing. And something that she said there really stuck with me and I've applied to my life and I've tried to teach clients as well too. And it's this whole notion of we need to stop chasing balance, but rather what we do need to chase is harmony. And what I believe harmony means is if you look up the definition of harmony, it says when one thing is in harmony, it goes well with something else. So we then look at that from our life. If your emotional and physical state is well, then the rest of your life is going to flow together as well too. So you mentioned some of the things you do in your life, Rob, like you have a hard stop time at 8 or 9. So you're being able to prioritize your sleep so that way the next day your emotional state is not fatigued and tired, because we all know that if we're tired, we're not going to get as much done. So I believe this whole notion of we got to chase balance is we just got to stop it and we got to focus more on harmony and working on our emotional and physical state. And if we do that, I'm in a better mood. We're going to be more focused. We're going to be more driven. We're going to have more happiness. And overall, our life is going to flow much better.
That's great advice. Tell us a little bit about your fitness program. Tell us what are some of the things that you think are most important in fitness. And I would like to hear things like how much time do you spend doing cardio versus strength training, and what are some of the things that you help these patrons of yours to set schedules, and do you recommend things like going to the gym every day or going for walks, or just talk us if we were sitting in a room and you were going to talk about fitness for a few minutes and just educate us on how we can get in better shape. This is your platform. Go.
Okay. The first thing I would say is add, don't subtract. Because so many people, they're like, okay, I gotta get extremely healthy. I gotta lose this belly fat. I want to regain confidence. I want to run a successful business, whatever it might be, right? And the first thing they do is, okay, I have to cut out sugar. I have to stop doing this and stop doing this and stop doing this. And it's just like this laundry list of things they got to stop doing, which there is some truth to that. If you stop doing those things, you will start to notice a result, right? But the problem is doing these things is often very unrealistic, and you cannot do those things for the rest of your life. Because we all know, like, for example, Rob, you might have done this and you might have not have, but the biggest thing is like drinking soda. Okay, I'm going to stop drinking soda this week. And it works for a month. And then a month later, you start binge drinking soda again because you cut it out cold turkey, right? I believe we need to look at our life and what are the things you're lacking and how can we add that in? Because my experience, a lot of people, they're lacking sleep, they're lacking stress management, they're lacking protein, they're lacking walking outside, getting movement. They're lacking stretching. Like, they're lacking a lot of things in their life. So what I would recommend is, rather than let's remove all of this, how can we start to add more things in? And I promise if you start doing that for the next 30 days, you're going to overall start to feel much better and start to notice more progress. And the best part is it's going to overall create better habits and better behavior changes as well too.
Yeah, I noticed that in my own personal experience that I did want to eat healthier because I was exercising. And frankly, I found that if I had a cheeseburger before I went to the gym, I felt like crap and I couldn't work out. So it's not that I had to say, no more cheeseburgers for me. I just realized that if I'm going to eat a cheeseburger, it's not going to be before I work out. And the most important thing is get there and work out. And if I am going to work out, have something before the workout that's not going to make me feel sick. Have a salad, have a smoothie, have something like that's going to be better for me. You're right. You start adding in the right things, and some of the negative things just work their way out. I also found that I don't drink as much soda. Like, I drink this San Pellegrino. This is like a juice with some carbonation. I do have soda from time to time, but I have found that I've cut out soda quite a bit because I was working out, because I just felt really good, and I would just look at that soda. I just feel like I didn't want that in my body. It just, and it's not even what's the word I'm looking for? It wasn't I was snobbing soda. It was just I would literally look at that and just be like, it just doesn't look good to me. Yeah. So I think as people exercise and work out and get in shape and feel better, a lot of those healthy eating choices are easier to do because it just fits in, we'll say, harmony with the working out and the exercise that you're doing. So I think that's great advice. I think that's probably one of the first times I've heard add, don't subtract. Yeah. The subtract stuff can come later, but just adding a routine, changing up things, getting that exercise, going for walks, whatever you got to do just to move.
No, and I could not agree more. And to just add on to that real quick, if you don't mind, Rob, you touched on something that I do believe is really important, but I do believe takes a lot more time. And you mentioned that before your workouts, you would eat like a cheeseburger. And then during the time of your workouts, you didn't feel well. So you basically identified how food makes you feel, which is a very important skill. But in my experience, that takes a lot more time for people to work on because unfortunately right now, people don't know what normal feels like. Like they walk around with low energy, fatigue, and like all these symptoms that they've just identified as normal because they don't know what being healthy and feeling better feels like.
Yeah, and once you start feeling better, then it feels better. And you know what I found too, though, is it is easy to slip back into a state of not going to the gym regularly, not working out regularly. You just skip 1 or 2 days and it gets easier and easier to skip. And so that's why there is some discipline that comes into that. But at the same time, I've noticed that as I begin to work out and I exercise, that it gets harder and harder to skip that as well. because my body just craves it. It's like right now, I haven't gotten to the gym today and I can't stand it. I'm ready to, especially after talking to you, I'm ready to get up and get to the gym, work out, get my cardio in, do some CrossFit. And because I just don't want to live without that. I don't want to feel what it feels like to not do that today. Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of me. I don't know if that's everybody else, but the more you exercise, the more you're going to like it. The less you exercise, the easier it is going to be to slip into that. So, it, even if, again, it's nothing more than, if you're listening to this podcast, once you're done with this podcast, or cut it off right now, I don't care. Get out of your seat, go for a walk, come back and finish the podcast. But get some movement in your life, get some exercise, and plant that seed, and then you can grow and grow from there.
Yeah, and to add on to that again, if you don't mind, Rob, because this is a problem I've seen as well too. It's, I struggle to get to the gym. I struggle to do X, like whatever it might be. People struggle to do that. If people go back and listen to what I said before about the 5 daily tasks to win the day, if you put going to the gym or doing 10 minutes of movement, whether that's walking around your block, that could be your daily task for the day. Again, this is a accountability piece on your own, or maybe you call up a friend or like your spouse and you show them this calendar. But that's an easy way to keep yourself accountable to get those things done, to help build more confidence and to develop more discipline in your life. Because a lot of people, they're like, you just need more discipline to go get X and Y, Z done, but nobody talks about how to actually make discipline and stuff like that.
Yeah, and you can make discipline by putting it on your schedule.
Exactly. There you go.
Yeah, that's fantastic. We've covered a lot on this podcast. We've talked about passion and having a mission and feeling like, as an entrepreneur, this is just something you have to do. We've talked about stubbornness. We've talked about discipline and what it takes. Talked about the wins and being task driven. We've talked about fitness. So I think this has been a really good podcast. But if people want to get in touch with you to have you coach them through either online or in person, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, the best way to do that, a couple different ways. You can find me on Facebook, Logan Decamp, or you can find me on, Instagram, all lowercase, Champ Decamp. And those are great places to find me if you want to just acquire about being able to work with me. Or also, we do a lot of free content. So for people that maybe don't even want to join our program, we do like once every single week, we do a live training. We do a bunch of resources and guides as well too, so I can get you in contact with that. But yeah, that's an easy way to find me.
Yeah, if you send me those links, then I'll make sure we put it in the meeting notes here, like the podcast notes. And then people who find this podcast, you should be able to get information about the podcast. And of course, we'll also upload it to my YouTube channel. I'll put the links in there as well. I think that's really good. I hope people do take the opportunity to reach out, at least ask some questions, and find out if there's some things that they can do to just improve their lives fitness-wise, even if it's just a little bit at a time. That's so important. So yes, if you'll send me that information, I'll make sure that information is there for people to find you and get answers to those questions. Is there anything else that you want to just leave with the audience before we finish up here?
Rob, the last thing that I could maybe mention to the audience that are listening in, because we're talking to people that run a business, people that are most likely going through a lot of challenges in their life, maybe from a business standpoint, maybe at home, whatever it might be. And I think a lot of times, and maybe you can relate to this as well too, running a business, trying to still have a healthy marriage, maybe people have kids, it can be extremely tough on you mentally. And as a result, we can sometimes create these false beliefs in ourselves that we cannot maybe do something, or maybe we cannot do, well, whatever it might be. But I just want people to know and understand, do not let the stories you make up in your head, do not let the stories you make up in your head distract you from who you really are. Because that's really important to recognize at the end of the day. So if you have stories in your head, try and find the facts in reality to support whatever stories that you're making up. And if you cannot find the facts, then they're false stories. You get rid of them and just keep on moving forward.
I think that's really good advice. And I think you had alluded to this, and maybe I can just put it into some words that make sense here. And that is, don't focus on the negative. Don't focus on who you think you are. Focus on who you want to be and be that person. Just focus on who you want to be and play that part. Do those things. Be that person. Don't focus on who you don't want to be. Focus on who you do want to be.
Yeah, I could not agree more. That's great.
Cool. Well, I appreciate the time with you. I will, again, it's probably going to be some time before I can get this edited and uploaded. And there's some other podcasts that I have that are in front of you, but I will get these done, get this up there, and I'll send you those links. And also, don't forget to send me that information that I can put in there about your website, your Facebook, and Instagram, and things like that. And I just want to say thank you. I appreciate your time. Great advice on so many levels. You've been just an awesome guest.
Thank you so much, Rob. This has been a lot of fun. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll be sure to message you soon, okay?
All right, sounds good. Thanks so much.
Thank you.